Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for another episode of the Mulliner and Musgrove show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and him, Sam Mulliner, back from his holidays. Sam, welcome back to the podcast. Did you have a nice time away?
A lovely time in the Algarve. Yeah, 25 to 30 degrees every day. Not a cloud in sight. It was it was lovely, and obviously flew back yesterday. Got home yesterday, back to Manchester, where of course it was raining, and back to Blighty. Yeah. And you can't even wait 24 hours before WhatsApping me to come on.
Well, I've got to give the people what they want. I mean, I think I literally WhatsApped you as you landed, right?
Pretty much.
I was tracking your flight and everything, man.
Yeah. Well, people on Twitter do that, but normally for people that matter, not myself. But yeah, no, great to be back on. As I understand it, it's all been kicking off whilst I've been away.
Well, no, it hasn't, because there's been no signings whatsoever in the transfer market. Before we get on to Newcastle United's movement or lack of in the transfer market, I know it's only been open a few days. We do have a new sponsor on board, and Sam, you probably could have done with them maybe when you were on holiday. So big thanks to Saily, who are a new eSIM service app brought to you by the creators of NordVPN, and it is a brilliant new app that you can download, and it provides internet connection wherever you travel and saves you money on the roaming fees. So if you hit the link in the podcast description box, you can get a very special offer on your new eSIM provided by Saily. You download once, it's affordable. You can choose from global and regional plans. It saves time. You can avoid scams. You can protect your privacy, and you save on mobile data as well. And there is also 24/7 chat support available. And you can get a full refund if your device isn't eSIM compatible. So hit the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of that offer. It really is worth your time and money. Sam, we are here today to discuss your dream Newcastle United signing on the right wing. To provide the context, we all thought Newcastle United were going to go and sign Bryan Mbeumo. I certainly did. He would have been my number one pick.
I thought
Now,
Cunha was your number one.
no, Cunha was number one back in January. If Newcastle could have worked that one out, but in terms of on the right wing, and Burma was my number one choice this summer. Right, he's off to Manchester United, and reportedly wants wages of £250,000 per week. So I can totally understand why Newcastle have gone, not for us, thank you very much, because if you're going to totally rip up the wage structure that is in place, you're not doing it for someone like Bryan Mbeumo, with all due respect. You're going to do it for a proper superstar. And £250,000 per week. I know Manchester United are throwing money at players, but surely they're not even going to pay that, right?
They're going to have to sell, and that's for certain. I don't know whether the suits surrounding Mike. Sorry, it's not Mike, is it? It's Jim. You can see why I'm a bit confused. We're banking on maybe Bruno Fernandes's move to Saudi happening, but that they'll be selling to in order to compensate for these purchases of Cunha and Mbeumo. I for one aren't that fussed about missing out on either. And you really have to question the kind of career ambitions of those two players if they're going to Manchester United at this stage, where there is just chaos, uncertainty, no European football of any form. They are at their lowest ebb for many a decade now. So would they have passed the kind of dickhead test that Newcastle have laid out over the past few years since the takeover? You would suggest that they wouldn't. Cunha especially has had a very questionable attitude over the years, resulting in disciplinary issues. But Burma was a bit more of a surprise, I think. I completely agree with you. He's not a player you would break the club's wage structure for. That, I think, will be reserved for when Alexander Isak gets his contract talks underway. Maybe a Tonali as well. But yeah, I'm refusing to be disappointed about them. There's plenty of fish left in the sea in that position around in Europe, which could represent better value. However, with that, the old phrase, the old adage of Premier League proven, obviously becomes a bit more of a risk where Mbeumo is that. Cunha is proving himself as well, but you really have to question those players about going to Manchester United. Cunha is less of a surprise. Mbeumo was surprising. His wage demand was very surprising, to be honest. I wouldn't have been overly keen on 60 million, but you just don't know the going rate these days. But I refuse to be disappointed, and their careers will probably flatline at some point at Old Trafford.
Yeah, it is a strange one for me. Obviously, money suggests that money does talk. I think if Manchester United had like an off season as opposed to one which you can really see terminal issues, then I could understand it a little bit more, But you look at what that squad needs to play in the image of Ruben Amorim, and it's much more than just those two players. It needs a complete overhaul. So they're not just sacrificing the next season. I think they're probably sacrificing maybe the next 2 or 3 seasons, really. But hey, that's up to them. Pick up their paycheck and they can go and
Well,
enjoy their careers.
unless they seriously mangle PSR, which is kind of less than bulletproof as it stands anyway. They can't do it all in one summer to get what they need, unless there is a huge overhaul. Yes, they'll recoup some fees for the likes of Rashford, Sancho. Obviously, don't seem part of the plans. Mainu could be up for sale as well for that old pure profit, same as Rashford, that old chestnut. But either way, for what they need, previously their off seasons would have still resulted in European football. So what is this? A complete nightmare. Obviously, losing to Spurs. It's got to be horrendous to lose to Spurs in a final as well. That final was just woefully bad. The Championship player final was arguably a better standard, but yeah, I just can't believe Ruben Amorim must be very, very persuasive, and have delusions of grandeur to seal those two players. But I'm sure, unfortunately, some more of the kind of people that make the club what it is will be made redundant soon enough to compensate.
Imagine being in Bryan Mbeumo and you're thinking, where should I go? Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle interested. And then he sees them, Manchester United, lose to the Asian All-Stars team over in Kuala Lumpur. And he thinks, yeah, I want to go and join Manchester United. Oh,
I
there's
love
the
the best thing was I love how like they were kind of using us, their fan base, which is just how great is it they're just refusing to accept where they are at the moment. Like, it wasn't going to be an open top bus parade for winning the Europa League. It was going to be a barbecue or whatever, and they had an open top bus parade in Malaysia, which was the most depressing sight in all of mankind. It was absolutely hilarious.
It all counts towards PSR, though, doesn't it? Don't discount Newcastle doing something like that in on their preseason tour. It helps raise a few pennies. But we'll move on from the disappointment or lack of disappointment with Bryan Mbeumo not signing for Newcastle United. I have asked people on social media for their dream alternative on the wing, and we've had a few suggestions. And as of yet, Sam, your man, who you're going to go into depth about in a wee second, has not been mentioned at all, which surprises me slightly, especially because I suspect most of
Just
the people
proves
who...
no one listens to me,
Well, that's what I
Andrew.
was going to say. The people who have responded to me most likely follow you as well, and have heard you banging on about this chap on this podcast, on Newcastle Fans TV, and on social media as well. I'm sure you tweeted about him 7 or 8 times over the weekend, as it were, as you were enjoying the sunshine in Portugal. Tell us about the man then. Who is your dream Newcastle United signing on the right wing?
Well, no, just before I'm curious to know, but just before I really dive into Takefusa Kubo, who are the players that people have been suggesting? Was it a poll that you ran with four
No,
kind
just
of
literally
specific players, or
people
just an
just
open ended?
people just jump in with their suggestions. So Semenyo, of course, from Bournemouth has been mentioned quite a few times. We've got Alanga mentioned a few times. Diblin mentioned on there as well. Oscar Bob is one who's been mentioned.
Mm,
Kudus from West Ham. Bakayoko from was it Feyenoord or PSV? PSV, isn't it? We've got Edemeni from Dortmund, who has been mentioned.
Adeyemi,
Well, there you go. And another chap who I don't know actually who he plays for. Let me just double check this. Al-Khalouchi.
Akalouche from Monaco. I've told you about him before.
Yes, there we go. Sam's got his little notebook out. But yeah, those are the players who've been mentioned, and your chap has not been mentioned. Are you surprised?
No. No. People have their own opinions. I mean, don't have to listen to me. Or if they've checked out Taka Kubo on YouTube, he's not had the greatest of seasons. But as I say, we'll go into that. But yeah, there's some very good players in that list that I certainly wouldn't say no to. There are some players in that list I would very much say no to as well. But yeah, no, I like Akalouche at Monaco.
Who are you saying no to out of those names that I've just mentioned?
Elanga.
Really?
Yeah.
I think he's a good player. I think he's got another level to go as well.
Right. Okay. So this is the difference, right? If you are mid commenting about to cuss me, I'm not saying they're a bad player whatsoever. All of those players are good. But for what we need and the levels we're at and the fronts we're going to be battling on next season, then there's a certain level of player that I believe has a bit of a higher ceiling than others. Alanga's a very good player, done very well for himself since leaving Manchester United, and that's becoming more of a regular occurrence now. Whereas when players did leave Manchester United, it was because Sir Alex didn't need them anymore, and they were very much on the downgrade, weren't they? I mean, we've had experience of that ourselves. Gabriel Obertan for one, but yeah, no, they're all more than capable players, but some aren't just for me, in my opinion. Maybe they don't suit the style we play. Maybe we're looking for something different. Obviously, we play with an inverted winger on the left, with Murphy on the right. We don't do that. But I think it's something we should look into. Hence, why Taka Kubo is my guy.
Well, just on Lang, his stats: 14 goals, 23 assists, and 113 Premier League games. Jacob Murphy, 19 goals, 29 assists, and 185 games. So he's an upgrade on Jacob Murphy, I would argue. He's Premier League proven, I would argue. I don't really get. You look on social media, and there's quite a dislike towards suggestion that Newcastle United could go in for Elanga yet again, because they did remember at the end of last summer. He is a player they've watched and liked. You've also got the link up with Alexander Isak, because they both play for Sweden. I think it could be a deal worth pursuing.
If the price was right, yeah. If we do end up with an Elanga, he has my full support because he's wearing the black and white stripes. The new kit, I must say, is I haven't ordered it yet because obviously I've been away, but it'll be getting ordered with those little cheeky Champions League patches on the side. Oh yes, please. Look, yeah. Again, if we end up with any of those players that I'm not don't feature high on my list, don't get me wrong, they're not bad players. They're just I would prefer others. And if we sign one of them, then they have my full support. But it's just one of these things when you look at transfers and what a player is essentially. When you're looking to sign a player, you're looking about what they can do, what they could do, what they promise to do, not exactly not all the time what they've done in the past.
So are you saying that Kubo is a better option than Elanga?
I think so.
Are you saying
I can't use stats from last season to back that up.
Are you saying he's a better option than Antoine Semenyo?
Yes.
You see, I haven't watched Kubo like you have. Looking at his stats, though, doesn't set my world alight, and you will get your chance to put the case forward for him. But someone like Semenyo does excite me a lot. I think he's brilliant. I know he's more of a left winger than he is a right winger, so that maybe puts a stop to that move.
I don't know. He's very comfortable on the right.
Oh, he is.
He's played against us on the right, and he would fit more the kind of Jacob Murphy kind of outward winger, like in the Murphy style, than Kubo. Because as I say, Kubo would be on that right hand side on an inverted front, like kind of Almiron was. But yeah, it depends what style Howe wants to go for, I imagine.
Well, saying that, he did play 20 times on the left and he played 19 times on the right for Bournemouth last season. So there you go, equally so on both wings. So maybe that isn't as an off the table deal as I did suggest there. I think he's an exciting player as well. I think he would cost quite a lot of money though, Bournemouth, especially now they've sold their centre back to Real Madrid. Probably aren't that desperate to sell. They're not going to have to sell, but I think they'll have a lot of interest in him.
Well, no, Houghton had the release clause as well, so they didn't have much choice in the situation.
Yeah, but that also helps towards the PSR wars if there are any. I would still take Elanga or Semenyo over Kubo. Semenyo's stats are great: 20 goals in I think it's 88 games, something like that. So I think he's really proven himself, and he looks really, really exciting. So for me, Elanga or Semenyo would be my pick. I can see why people are suggesting Kudos from West Ham. I think he looks like a player who's
He's
got the
another one
balls.
that's had a quiet season.
Yeah, he is, and there's also questions over his attitude and what have you. But he's a man with complete ability. It's just whether he can reach his true potential.
Yeah.
But I like I say, for me, there are better options than your man. But you're now going to put the case forward for Kubo.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can get bogged down in stats, and stats. If you're a budding statistician and you love your numbers, which I do to a point, but yeah, you're going to hate this. But what I would ask first of all is, can you look at Alexander Isak's stats for Sociedad the season before we signed him, please? Because just as a kind of barometer, because they are very underwhelming.
Okay, I will do that now to help your point. So, yeah, so you hit 6 and 32. Before that, it was 17 and 34, and before that, it was 9 in 37.
And that was a player we broke our club transfer record on. Do those numbers really inspire?
No, and that's why there was a few questions from certain people about the fee Newcastle paid for him. But obviously, they'd done their homework and they'd scouted him and they'd seen a real player in him.
And you can go back. It's on record. It was on Sky Sports News. In fact, I had a lot of hate from fans from other sides in the comments because I knew what we were getting, and I thought it was an absolute bargain, which has proven to be the case. Thankfully, obviously, I'm not right all the time. I will grant you, but Sociedad are a bit of a sinking ship at the moment. They've not had a good season. Things have stagnated there, and you're going to see a lot of movement with their kind of bigger players this summer. Zubimendi's already on his way to Arsenal, it would seem. Their striker as well, Oyarzabal, is a very good option for someone out there. And Kubo is one who's crying out for a move now. He can't achieve anything more at Sociedad. There's been struggles within the whole camp this season, hence why Kubo's numbers are not overly inspirational from last season whatsoever. What I like about him, a wonderfully technically gifted player, to kind of put it in layman's terms, think of Almiron, think of Salah, and Kubo fits closer to Salah than he does Almiron, because they're kind of Salah and Almiron, obviously worlds apart in ability, but they're the kind of same sort of player, inverted winger, like to cut inside, very left-footed, and Kubo is of that kind of ilk, but a lot better than Almiron. I mean, I know you're pulling a face because you're Miggy's #1 fan. I trust you've already got your Atlanta shirt with Almiron on the back, ready to go for the MLS.
I'm not pulling a face at the fact that this chap's better than Almiron, and I would expect that to be the
You would,
case.
yeah, very much so. I'd be worried if it wasn't.
Pulling the face at that you've gone Almiron Salah, and he's closer to Salah. I mean, that's I think that's quite.
Well, I'm using Almiron as an example because he was the Newcastle player. We haven't had an inverted winger better than that, really, have we? On that right hand side for a good while.
Switch.
I mean, I'd rather use Almiron than Sylvan Marvo.
True. Okay, but let me just pick another winger, not in the same position, but
okay.
Anthony Gordon. We know how good Anthony Gordon is. Okay, had a tough end to the season, but his numbers hold up. I mean, in terms of ability-wise, I mean, what are we talking? I mean, Anthony Gordon for me, third or fourth most important player in this squad. Is your man up there?
Yeah, no, I can get on board with that. Yeah, he'd be around that. Yeah, but obviously on the right, which the reason why I'm so persistent with this inverted winger as well is because if we were looking at Mbeumo, then that would suggest that would be the way we want to go. Which makes sense to me because we don't have. And look, it's not a slant on Jacob Murphy. His numbers stand up to anyone and everyone in the Premier League last season. What a season he's had! What a story! But do you want him as your first out and out right wing choice going into a Champions League campaign where it is just him? I think the aim has to be for the squad long term for him to be a squad player who can come in when it's a 3-game week, which they'll be very, very commonplace next season. Of course, more games in the Champions League in the new group stage format. Obviously, we're going to be competitive in the domestic cups again. You would hope, anyway. You want to defend your crown, of course. So Murphy will have his part to play in no uncertain terms, but Kubo would add an extra dimension. Very, very pacey, very pacey. Technically gifted. Has a wand of a left foot as well. Versatile too. If we need to change formation, you could stick him in the 10, no problem whatsoever. If there is, I mean, you could even kind of, if you wanted to go more tradish, left-footed winger on the left, right-footed winger on the right, then you could do that too. But yeah, he's crying out for a move now. That I've no doubt he'll get one. Obviously, playing in La Liga, he does have a release clause, which has been reported to be around 60 million euros. I would probably want to get it down a little bit, but I'm very stingy. I wouldn't have paid 60 for Mbeumo either. So yeah, I think there's a bit of value to be had there. I would be very excited to see him in a black and white shirt going into next season. I think his ceiling is very, very high. Probably higher than, well, definitely higher than that of an Elanga, of a Semenyo. Yeah, chalk and cheese. His ceiling is well above theirs. And of course, what was pointed out to me, because I don't really have this kind of business acumen mind, shirt sales in Asia, the Far East, and what it would do to that market, such as a Son Heung-min did for Tottenham. Yeah, just think of the commercial benefits, the PSR value to a Kubo. He's a good age, that he fits the mold of that kind of player that we kind of go in for at this stage when we're looking for a big signing, like we did with Isak, Botman, Tonali, Bruno, Gordon. Our real key big players. He fits into that mold perfectly.
A few points to pick you up on. I mean, first off, the price tag's the really interesting one. Now, Kubo was linked to Liverpool and Arsenal in the last few weeks, between 50 and 60 million pounds. Now, what's thought to happen with Newcastle United's transfer approach? If they go abroad, they're looking to pick up bargains, and I'm not really sure that if you can get Elanga or Semenyo, who are proven in the Premier League, and that's going to cost you 65 to 70 million, are you going to be paying 50 to 60 million for someone who many would perceive to be a risk? I'm not sure they will do that. I think if they buy abroad, they will be looking at the kind of 25, 35 million pound margin to try and pick up the best value possible. Another thing you said there about his season, because people will look at the stats, Sam, and will say not very good at all this season. 7 goals and 52 appearances. He scored 23 goals in 137 appearances since his move to Real Sociedad back in 2022. You've alluded to it just before about the chaos or mess at Sociedad this season. They finished 11th in La Liga, got the semi-finals of the cup though, but not the best of seasons. Just tell us why people should ignore those stats of 7 and 52 and look beyond the numbers.
I suppose ignore. Look, there are plenty of players that have moved to England from foreign fields that don't have great numbers. I mean, when Tielemans signed for Leicester, his numbers weren't great. As we mentioned there, Isak's numbers when he signed from Sociedad weren't anything to write home about. Certainly on numbers alone, not to justify 60 odd million pound. I don't get bogged down in numbers because. All right, if you want to throw numbers at me, what can't speak can't lie, and yes, there's something left to be desired there, but I try and see that as maybe an avenue to maybe snatch a bit of a bargain. Just because you've had a quiet season doesn't make you a bad player. Again, if your team's not firing and there's all sorts of question marks surrounding a lot of players. I mean, the last few years, Sociedad have been European regulars. As you said, aside from their cup run, their league campaign has been horrendous. Their squad has still got. A good few. I mean, their squad isn't overly amazing, but as a whole, I mean, but you know, there are a good few headline players there that will be certainly itching for moves this summer. Um, and look, I'd be certainly looking to knock down that release clause fee of 60 million euros or whatever it is, but. I think this guy's just got such tremendous potential, and he will certainly buy into the ethos of Eddie Howe's Newcastle. He's incredibly hardworking. Will really get on board with our high press, um, and I think he'd really live up to what I expect him to go on to achieve in his career. I think he'd fit into our team so seamlessly, and he'd adapt to English football quite easily as well, because I think he's got all the attributes it takes to really be a real talent in the Premier League.
You look at the previous 2 seasons, and again the numbers aren't great. 7 and 41,
Well,
9
we've
and
done that. I
44.
said don't get bogged down in
No, I know that,
numbers.
but you said this season if your team's not firing, and then you referenced the fact that previously, they've been European regulars, and I've gone back and said, well, actually, the 2 seasons where the club's deemed to do a little bit better, his numbers still aren't overly great. And if you're paying 50, 60 million pounds, maybe you do want something a little bit more. And I guess people will come back at me and say, well, if you're paying that for a Langer, look at what he's done last season. I get that. Okay, I get the argument that you can't just judge someone on one season. You mentioned the attributes there. I mean, again, I haven't seen him. I haven't even looked him on YouTube, Sam. I just take your opinion on him. But from the pictures that I've seen, kind of looking through and preparing the thumbnail for this video and what have you, he looks a little bit lightweight, perhaps. But then I guess he doesn't look too separate to the build of Matoma at Brighton, who's been an absolute fantastic signing for Brighton. I mean, if we were talking about him coming to Newcastle United, I'd snap your hands off. So we have to be hoping that even though the stature maybe doesn't look like he can handle the physicality, he can return a similar amount of goals and assists and just brilliance that Matoma has as his fellow countryman.
I mean, he's a winger. He's not built like a brick.
No, I know
S-house.
that, but you're going up against physical fullbacks, and I guess sometimes the worry is that players of a smaller stature would struggle in
Yeah,
that.
I understand your point, and you could have and you could make the case for Isak when he first signed, was getting pushed off the ball quite a bit, but you adapt, you learn, you evolve as a player. So there's no reason why you can't do the same. That side of things does not concern me one iota. Um, Wingers are supposed to be quick, nippy, slight build. They're not all kind of tanks. I guess Mbeumo is a bit of one, and has that explosive pace, which kind of made him very popular with the kind of Newcastle fan base. I appreciate he was the first choice of many, but yeah, look, there's yeah, just doesn't. It's just not a concern for me anyway.
I guess if Liverpool and Arsenal are linked to him, that also probably backs up your points about
Oh,
him
that
being quite a
report you
talent.
tagged me in on Twitter was the biggest pile of cow dung I've ever read in my life.
Got the
Why? I mean,
reaction I wanted.
he was linked with the two clubs in that article that don't need a right winger, that have probably the best two right wingers in the Premier League in Saka and Salah. What a load of tripe.
Well, obviously, it did turn out to be just that. But, they're two teams obviously battling for the Premier League title. That's where Newcastle United want to be as well. So if they are indeed interested in him or have held interest in him, that kind of reaffirms your point about him being the right pick for Newcastle, I guess.
Yeah, if he signs, I'll make a gentleman's bet with you that he will outscore, out assist Elanga and Semenya and those type of players. I will happily take that. But I'm the first to hold my hands up. I know nothing of what the upper echelons are thinking at Newcastle. Obviously, we've no sporting director, which is what I meant by it all kicking off whilst I've been away. That was a bit of a surprise. But look, yeah, he's just a player I like. There are alternatives out there that could do a good job as well. But I think my record of the past in particularly highlighting Isak and Tonali, and might I add, if you go on my X feed or Twitter feed or whatever it is,
Oh, I knew this was coming.
what
Go on, the PSG chap. You've been saving this, haven't you? Have your moment.
Desiree Doué, who I outlined when he was a 17-year-old at Rennes. What? Come on.
Goodness me, if people think I've been bleating on about Liam Delap and rubbing people's faces and who
Yeah,
doubted
but I
me, you've
don't
seen
think that
nothing with him.
ever really held water, did it, Liam Delap? I get there were reports going around that we were interested in him, but I was never ever confident that we were going to
No, I
get him.
don't mean that. Just about the fact that I was right about him. But
All right, yeah, but okay. Well, a broken clock is right twice a day.
my glee holds nothing in comparison to you and the names that you keep mentioning. Another name who someone just dropped to me on X, and I've seen this mentioned a few times, and I like the ambition of people because if we could get this chap, then he would be top of my list actually. But I've been aiming for people of a more realistic nature.
Yeah,
Kulusevski from Tottenham is a fantastic player, but they've got Champions League football next season, so I can't
I
see him leaving
don't think that's
Spurs.
unrealistic.
You don't.
No, I don't think that's unrealistic at all.
Well, maybe Isak could put a word in for him. Maybe Emil Kraft could have a
Are
little bit of a
you
word.
just adamant we need to sign another Swede this summer?
I'm just talking about the names people that drop, but he is a great player, but I just don't think that's a realistic option.
I think if we put a bid in, he'd come, but I don't think. How old is he? Is my question.
25. He's 25.
He's
But
only
what does
25.
yeah, I know I was surprised at that. He looks a little bit older. He had a tough paper round, perhaps. But what I have noted about him and his move to Tottenham that it was on an initial 18-month loan
Yes.
worth 10 million and then had to pay up to 35 million. They're the kind of deals that I want to see Newcastle United maybe doing where they can spread the cost and
All right. Well,
talk
what
about
was
these top players.
Kulusevski's numbers for Juventus before that loan deal happened?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Right.
You can't have it both ways.
Oh, my internet's gone. Yeah, no, they weren't
Yeah.
great.
Exactly. This is why you have a scout, because when you buy players, you're buying them on what they're going to do, not what they've done. Especially when you're in that kind of market for young up and coming players that haven't proven themselves yet. You want them to find their feet at our at our club, like Bruno Guimaraes has, like Alexander Isak has, like Sven Botman has if he can stay fit for 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean Botman next season if he can stay fit. Oh, can't wait to see him back because the guy is just makes it look so easy. Yeah, like Anthony Gordon has, who I wasn't a fan of that signing when it first happened, but whew, I am now. And there's enough time for the fees to amortize and not be an issue long term. Like if you were going in to buy who's available at the moment, a Son Heung-min, for example. Spurs reportedly want to sell Son, and I love Son Heung-min. Probably my favourite player that doesn't play for Newcastle. Terrible season last season, by the way, but still a very talented player nonetheless. What would you gain from spending all that money on a Son Heung-min, other than 1 million shirt sales in South Korea?
No, it is a fair point, and we've got to think
Rashford would be
beyond.
another one. What are you really going to gain from that?
No, it is a fair point. You do have to think kind of bigger picture, but also I do think there is an importance of looking at the here and now and that instant impact, and various reports
Yeah, I
about
get
how
that.
Newcastle United are
I get
targeting.
that completely, which is why I haven't suggested Tyler Dibbling. which
because
is
he would
why I
take 2 or
haven't
3 years
suggested.
to.
Yeah, it would. The same as if you were going to get a Duranville from Dortmund, who's a baby in footballing terms, but he's going to be class as well. He'll probably come on a lot next season, Duranville, especially if Dortmund get rid of Adiemi or Gittins as well, who are more left-sided anyway. But yeah, Bakayoko, I wouldn't say no to at all. But yeah, Diblin, can you throw him in for the first game of next season? No, probably not. It wouldn't be too clever. He's one for to kind of mature. But yeah, Kubo, I've no issue. That obviously will take a few games to adapt. But yeah, you could still chuck him in, and he'd be very adept, in my opinion. Yeah, but there are others out there. I like Akalush at Monaco. Obviously, Desiree Doué is going nowhere now. I remember. Oh, do you know what? I remember we used to, in my old job watching Ligue 1 on a Saturday night, and just him tearing it up as a 17-year-old for Rennes, winning games single-handedly, and he looked an absolute baller then. And look what he's gone on to achieve. It's still such a young age. Just tore up that Champions League final. Incredible.
Yeah, the world at his feet, and I guess when we're talking as well, as you were just there a moment ago about age and spreading the cost out, and what benefit do you get if you're signing kind of all the players, you would totally write off the prospect of Jared Bowen, even if he was open to a move, which he
Oh
probably isn't because he's
God!
made. But
You
he's not
stop
coming because
mentioning Jared Bowen. He's
he's a
not
great
coming to
player.
Newcastle.
I know he's not, but we can. I can hope, and it'll be a great signing. But he's not coming. Age, he's settled down in London. He's got a. He's a legend, isn't he, at West Ham? So he's not going. But
Yeah.
interesting, the age thing is creeping up more and more now.
Well, it has to, because all right, we're quite sort of well funded for this transfer window at least, but you've still got to spend it wisely on players with a serious future ahead of them, because what happens in the next transfer window, and the
Yeah,
next
but
one, and the
I
next
mean,
one.
on that, and I mentioned this on yesterday's episode. Like, what is the right age? Because again, there was various reports about 25 being too old for Mbeumo to spend that amount of money. So therefore, you write off Semenyo. He's the same age. Kulusevski, you'd write off him. So I mean, I don't think that would necessarily be the case. I think you still need to add that experience in, and that obviously
I
comes.
really, really find that sickening that 25 was too old.
I know, me too. So
That's
maybe
disgusting.
28, 27, but interesting to see how the summer pans out. I just want to read out this tweet that has been sent in by Kyle. So thank you to everyone who has responded to my question about the dream right winger. And Kyle has suggested quite a few names, but I just love the fact that he suggested Kulusevski. He's the reason I've mentioned it. He goes, he's played on both flanks for Tottenham well, and I've played him on Football Manager on the right wing, and he's done well there as well. I just thought that made me laugh a little bit.
Bless. Where's
Imagine Steve
Cherno Samba
Nixon,
these days?
away on Football Manager having a go, but the
I
database is very
seriously
good.
hope not. Or what's that Swedish guy that was supposed to be a Football Manager legend? He was actually very good against Man United in the Europa League a few seasons back.
And you get them all the time, don't you? It's crazy to think that.
Bardgy, Ronnie Bardgy, someone. Yeah, is he still at Copenhagen? I don't know. But where's Cherno Samba at now? Could he do a job with Wilson leaving? He was the one, wasn't he? I haven't played Football Manager for about 20 years.
No, I haven't either. Where's Bastos is the question, or Bornetta? We've got
Tell me about it.
another
One
tweet.
kind of one unrealistic one for you. Just
Go on.
take advantage of AC Milan not getting Europe and just go and get Rafael Leao.
See, that would be someone I would break the wage structure for. That would be someone you'd gladly pay over £200,000 a week for. This last tweet I'm going to read out is coming in again. It's made me chuckle, from Capital G, and he says, "Is there a sweep running for how many minutes before Sam Mulliner mentions Kubo? What he doesn't know is that this entire episode has been dedicated to Kubo."
Well, you asked. I didn't. I don't text you. Can I come on the podcast today? I want to talk about Kubo and on my holiday to
You didn't take
Portugal.
much persuading, though, did you?
No, you said, am I free? And yes, because I'm not back at work till Friday.
Look at that, a
So
man of absolute leisure. A week off in Portugal and a week off here back in Blighty, where you can just wax lyrical about Kubo. My
I
ears,
mean,
the
we can
dream
do some
signing
more
for
on other
Newcastle
positions
United.
we need if you want. I've got some centre halves, some goalkeepers, some
Well,
strikers.
we'll store them in the bag for next week and the weeks after. But there we go. Right, Sam, you're sitting down with Steve Nixon, and he says, Sam, persuade me. Give me your sales pitch to why Kubo is the man for Newcastle United this summer. Go.
Oh, I can think of so many jokes. Why is it taking you this long to find me, Steve? Would be one of them. Hand in glove would fit our squad, would to have fit the ethos of our manager's kind of direction and how we want to play and attitude. Passes the dickhead test. Solid, hard-working ethic, technically gifted, full of pace, bags of ability, bags of potential. He's got everything and more that we require on that right-hand side going forward to manage not just a Champions League campaign, but a Premier League campaign, domestic cup campaign, fighting on all fronts next season. He will be everything that the manager wants him to be and more. He is the real deal.
Do you know what? Even though you haven't, your gaze suggests that you've read that off an auto cue, the way you were looking so dedicated into the camera.
No, but this is a player I've followed for ages, much like the others. Like when buzzing when Tonali signed as well, because that was a player I'd watched when he was at Brescia. So I'm a football geek and nerd, and to be honest, my work was with that, because when there's nothing to do and nothing else on, you'd watch European League football. I still do now. On one of the monitors at Coral TV of an evening, whenever like the main football's finished, I'll happily sit in the background with Bundesliga on in the background and whatnot. My word, I was saying to you before we started, if Dortmund hadn't saved Champions League on the final day of the season and Freiburg hadn't bottled it, then Dortmund would have been ripe for the picking for some of their players had they missed Champions League, which is kind of disappointing in one sense. I think Gregor Kobel, who I saw us linked with, I mean, never in my wildest dreams would we kind of even go for him, but he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world for me. So he would have been top on my list between the sticks, but yeah, I can't see much movement there now because of, well, they got Champions League. We may well be back there next season. Who knows?
Well, we will wait and see. But thanks to Sam for coming on to the podcast and sharing his dream signing for Newcastle United when it comes to right winger. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. If you've got a name instead of Kubo, you would like to see Newcastle United sign a realistic one, do pop it into the comments or get in touch on social media or the email address at theeibwpodcast@reachplc.com. And I will get back to you. Thank you to Saily for coming on board and sponsoring the podcast. Do sign up and get your eSIM, which will benefit you while traveling abroad. For myself and Sam, we will see you guys next week.